I love those things. They're a huge part of my upbringing, a huge part of making me who I am today. So I think part of the response was, it was just, if I was really in love with this subject and this subject matter in this film. This was not a job I took. And I think sometimes when you watch movies, you can tell, oh, that was a job somebody took. And then you can tell in the movies that people are actually in love with what they're doing. And I think there were so many people involved in this film that were in love with what they were doing. So, yeah.
One of the things, listen, what is it like, so this comes out, everyone loves it. What is it like getting phone calls from different studios or different people when it's like, let's talk about you directing, and it's not about the music, it's about you getting behind the camera?
That was great. That was great because, I grew up making movies. That's all I did as a kid, was make movies from age 9 on. And music was not the thing that I thought I'd be doing. That was not, if you had asked me as a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'd tell you I'd want to make movies. I never would have told you I want to score movies. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it, and it has been great. I love doing that, but I really miss making movies. And I got on this career path that sort of took me away from the ability to do that. At some point, I just looked back at, I think I was like sitting in my office one day looking at all of the scores that they're all up on, of all the movies that I've worked on up there, and I was like, wow, that's sort of just tiring even looking at it, and that represents a lot of years. And I thought, I probably don't have as many years ahead of me as I did behind me, so I kind of, if I want to still do this, I should try and do it. And I had been talking to Kevin Feige over the years. He knew, not necessarily about directing, but he knew I wanted to do that. He knew I wanted to get back into that. And one day we were just talking, and he just said, well, if you want to direct something here, what would you want to direct? What would it be? What would it be? And I was like, Werewolf by Night. And he's like, what? Werewolf by Night? Like, everyone always asks for Spider-Man or any of these, the giant stuff. And I was like, I like that because it's weird. I had the comics as a kid. I love those. I felt like that was a great story to tell. It's something nobody would expect from you. And I also feel like you've sort of cornered the market on this whole superhero thing. You guys also own all of this really awesome horror stuff too. Why aren't we doing that? That's so fun, And he was just like, okay, let's make that. And I was like, wait, really? What? I was like, come on. If I knew it was going to be that, I would have done that, asked a long time ago. But he was he was incredibly supportive, and he was just like, Disney Plus was just coming out, so they had this huge mandate to fill all of this space. So everything just happened at the right time. If this had not been made until now, I don't know that this ever would have gotten made in the environment we're in right now, in terms of everyone overspending and streaming, and everyone trying to figure out what the heck they're doing. What are movies? Nobody even knows what movies are anymore. I just think we fell in this sweet spot, which allowed us to do this crazy thing that no one was expecting. And also the fact that they were working on so many other things at the time. Our little movie was just sort of like off to the side, chugging along, and they just sort of left us alone, and we were able to do this crazy, odd thing and bring it out into the world, which I still think is a miracle that this thing exists.
Oh, I also agree with that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, so they let you do this. Were there any parameters that they gave you that said, hey, you can do this, but you gotta steer clear of this?
No, none at all. And in fact, I wanted to make sure this was sort of a bottle episode, like a Twilight Zone episode. I wanted to make sure that this felt like something that anyone could watch without ever having seen anything related to Marvel. I wanted to be able to just sit down and watch something and enjoy it without worrying about, wait, what the heck did I miss? What is this? And they were okay with that. And the funny thing was, when you're making this stuff, then you do test screenings and you show it to people who, and you see what the reaction is. And the first time we showed it, no one got it. And so many of the responses were, wait, where's Doctor Strange? Is Captain America gonna show up? Doesn't Spider-Man, and I was just like, what? And I remember Kevin looked at me and he goes, did we break the audience? We might have broke the audience. And I was like, I don't know. So I was just like, we can't just go shoot a scene now with Captain America. We can't do that. I said, okay, how about this? The most I will do, because I didn't want to have anything to do with any of the other stuff, but I was like, the most I will do is, what if we started off, the first thing you see is an illustration of the Avengers. And we go, okay, This is your world. This exists. We know. Look, remember these guys? All right, now we're going to go down here. We're going to go down into the darkness, but they're still up there. Don't worry, everyone. And I'll tell you, the second we did that, everything was fine. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Everyone just needed to know, okay, my people that I love so much they're okay. They live in this world. They're a part of this. They're just not going to be seen tonight. I'm good for that. They just needed to be told that thing. And it took us like 3 test screenings to figure that out, what really was at what going on. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it.
The last time we spoke, I asked you this question, and you sort of evaded. Let's see if you answer it. So, do you want to tell people when this takes place in the MCU timeline?
I would love to tell them, except I have no idea because I didn't plan it that way. It wasn't written out like that. It wasn't meant to be something that fell in. It was meant to be designed so that if someday it would make sense to find out what time slot is best for it, then great, we can figure that out down the road. But it wasn't designed to be in a specific place at a specific time, other than to say that it exists around the time that those characters exist too. So who knows where they're off doing. For all I know, they could have been, beating up Thanos or something while this was going on. I have no idea. But as far as the blip and all of that, no idea. No idea.
Well, let's talk about specifically the in-color part. So for people that are not aware, you shot this in color and
Yes.
then did black and white in post.
Yes, I wanted to do it in black and white. They were not sold on that immediately. So they said shoot it in color and then we'll see. Now, when you're shooting something for black and white, you light it very differently than you do when you're lighting for color. So it was a little tricky. So our DP, Zoe White, who is incredible, she set up a special monitor just to have the black and white. So we could review black and white as we were shooting. So I could always look and go, okay, that's gonna work in black and white. And then once we edited the film together, it was Jeff Ford, the brilliant editor, we put it together and then we filmed it out. So we actually transferred it to film and then scanned it back in. We transferred it to black and white film and then rescanned it back in. So essentially what you're watching is a scan of a 35 millimeter print in the end. And that was really great because we just wanted a look that we were not getting both digitally and just with the way we had shot it. And that was the trick, which really kind of like pushed it over the edge for us. And also adding in all the real change markers and things like that and craziness.
Yeah, I want to ask you specifically about the cigarette burns. For the audience who doesn't understand or doesn't know what a cigarette burn is,
Right.
Can you explain it and then also explain why you wanted that in the movie?
Yeah, well, back in the day when they were projecting on film, every theater had a guy who would sit up there and there would be 2 projectors running and one projector would be threaded up and ready to go. They'd start that. In about 20 minutes, depending on how big the reels were that they created, in about 20 minutes, he would see these little white marks pop up on the upper right-hand side. Boom, and those were timings. You had 3 seconds to go before you had to turn this projector off and turn the other one on. And that way it would be perfectly in sync and you'd never know that. I mean, you always knew a little bit because there was a little sound weirdness. I remember even when I watch movies today, when I watch Raiders now, I still remember every single reel change because I saw it so many times in the theater. But that's what that was. So it was just a callback to days when the only way to see these things was in a theater, so yeah.
I heard something since the last time I spoke to you, and I'm ambushing you with this.
Uh-oh.
But I heard you have an obsession with Raiders.
I do have an obsession with Raiders.
And I heard you might have something cool in your place that has to do with Raiders. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I heard, so do you want to talk about it? You can avoid. You can say no.
It's
personal.
I love Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my favorite movies of all time, and for so many reasons. Because it was made for a price, made on a schedule that was really tough, and it was where Steven really learned how to juggle and get things done on time, on budget, and it was a movie that if he didn't do right, he probably was not going to get the next film he wanted to do, because he had a couple films that while they were successful, production-wise, it was really tough, and they all came in over budget and over schedule. So, for so many reasons, I love that film. So anything I can collect or find from that film, I do, and I have a couple of pieces from it. We'll just leave it at that. It's not a big deal. I have Harrison Ford's head at home in a thing.
Yeah, I won't press you any further. So going into this, did you have any sort of because you have blood now in color? In the black and
Yes.
white version, you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of did you tweak anything or do
Well,
anything?
We thought we had gotten away with something with the black and white. We were able to do a lot more gore because of that. As it turns out, they didn't seem to care because they didn't make us take any of it out or pump down any of the reds or anything. So it was just like, oh, I guess we were, worried for nothing. And I mean, it's not the kind of gore. I like to think this is fun gore. It's not torture porn, which I'm not into that. There's a lot of movies like horror movies that are much more torture porn kind of. And that's not my thing. But I felt like this was more like this is the kind of horror movie you'd make if you were 12 years old, and had a camera in your backyard.
I am curious. How did it come about with the in color part? Was it one of these things? Like, how long ago did Disney or Kevin or someone say to you, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Or did you go to them?
We did it as we were finishing the black and white one. It was always planned as a thing. After we finished the black and white, let's go back and let's see if we can make a color version. Let's see what would that look like to us. We were all interested in what that would be, and especially as a fan of Hammer horror films, I was like, yeah, if we can get into that mode where you're really saturating all the colors and playing with the lighting, if we can do it, if we can make it work, then yes, let's do it. So we did some experiments with it, and we were all just having so much fun. We just did the entire thing, and the idea was, well, look, we'll see what it was done before the other one came out.
Crazy.
So it's been sitting there just waiting this whole time, and we thought if the first one goes over well and people like it, then maybe it would be fun to release next year the color version. Just as a bonus fun thing. The black and white one will always exist. That one, to me, in my heart, is the definitive version.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is it's a fun way to kind of revisit it in another fashion,
So if someone has not seen this before, both versions will be on Disney Plus. You want them watching the black and white first?
I think the first time you see it, you should see it in black and white, because there is one thing about the color that is interesting, and I always wondered how that would play or not play, and that's when, at the end, when Elsa sits down in that chair and she has the bloodstone, and then you start to hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and the colors start to emanate from Elsa. So from Elsa on out, and the whole idea with that for me was that Elsa changed the world. She was able to do something that made a huge difference, and the best way for me to show that was to just bring this vibrant look to the world around her from the dreary, awful place that she was forced to grow up in and live. And I thought that was such a cool way to say that she's in charge now. She took back all of this power, and she's going to do, I don't know what she's going to do with it. Hopefully someday we'll find out. But it was there for her to do whatever she chose to do with it, as opposed to be handed something and be told what to do with it. And that was a story that we always wanted to tell from the beginning. And Heather Quinn, our writer, she's right here. Here's Heather who wrote it. We spent a lot of time talking about that arc too. Just how do we best sort of explain that or get that across? Because it's a short film basically, and so there's not a lot of real estate to tell all the story you would normally do in a long series, or even a 90-minute film gives you a lot more to play with. So
you obviously had to make this on a budget, and so I'm curious, you have moments where you can quote unquote spend money. So how did you sort of figure out, especially in the writing process, of where are we going to spend money? Where can we play, if you know what I mean? Right.
Well, I mean, I think right off the bat, the first time I looked at one of the budgets, and I was like looking at all these massive numbers, and I was like, what is that for? And they're like, well, that's our digital werewolf asset, and we're going to have to build that because he'll probably be in most of the scenes of the film. And I was like, no, he won't. And they were like, well, it's a werewolf movie. I'm like, yeah, but maybe he'll be in it for 5 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes. And I never even really counted how long the last bit is with him in it, but it's probably around that. And I said, no, the rest is all about getting to know the people and the characters and what they're doing, what they want, and all of that. And then boom, at the end, we'll transform him and do it. And I said, and by the way, it's not going to be digital. We're just going to put him in a suit. That's just, it worked for so many years that way. That's the way we're going to do it. The last thing I wanted was a digital werewolf, because that would feel wrong to me in some ways, And I've seen movies that have done digital werewolves, and I'm not a fan of it. And I know digital has gotten great, and as an additive, I think it's wonderful. And for some things, it's incredible. Like Man Thing, please, it was really a work of art. So, but for him, I wanted it to feel like he was in the room, not just with the people, but with everyone who's watching it. I wanted them to feel that visceral realness, because you can tell. I think we all agree. You can tell when it's not really there in the room with the people who are supposed to be acting with this thing. That's why we actually had a full-size Man Thing on set too. That was incredibly sculpted, and it could move, and its eyebrows went up, and its eyes were all over, and it was just his trunk moves, and we had that for the actors to work with, and so that they could actually have. I said the last thing I don't want any actor to have to look at a tennis ball on the end of a pole. You've all seen those behind the scene things. I was like, none of that. We're not going to do. I really want real sets, everything as practical as possible. And the practical side of it was a blast, because I was like that. I was like Steven Stucker in Airplane, going, we could do this and we could do that. We could have this and we could chop off his arm and throw blood everywhere. And it was like just such a fun sort of like, it was just a fun process. To have everything on set is great. When you don't, you're just like, it's just, I don't like that. I like things there in front of us.
So it's been a year since this has been out.
Yeah.
Is there any talk about these characters continuing now that it's a year later?
There's always talk, it's like, but until somebody decides to spend a penny, nothing happens yet. So hopefully, my wish is that yes, there will be more with these characters. I would love to, and I have ideas of what I would love to do with them. And it's all crazy and nuts, but I think that's the only way to go about it. So hopefully one day.
I am curious with, this was obviously very successful. So did Kevin pull you aside after and be like, hey, so what else are you thinking?
Well, since we're friends, so we always talk about that stuff anyway, in the way that you would sit with your friends as a kid and be like, hey, did you see the new Star Trek thing? And like that's what we do anyway. So I think, as is painfully obvious with all the studios, they're all sort of rethinking and figuring out and reassessing how they make things. So I think there's a process they need to go through, these growing pains with the streaming platforms. And once that happens, I think we can get back to figuring out what it is we want to do all of this.
I want to open it up to the audience, but before I do, it came out since I last spoke to you that you might be doing a remake of Them at Warner Brothers.
Yes, this is true.
And so I'm curious if I can ask, where are you in the development process, and do you think that is your next time directing?
There's a really good shot that'll be the next one that goes, yes. Them was a film in the 1950s about giant ants. It was sort of discussing the oncoming nuclear age that we found ourselves in and were woefully unprepared for as human beings. And so I thought there's so much going on in the world that was clearly a lesson we didn't learn as humans, and it feels like it's a story that could be told again today with a lot of the shit that's going on in the world. But and I love that movie dearly, and it's a very special film. So that was when I was just having a meeting over at Warner Brothers, and I was meeting with the heads of the studio, and they were just asking, it was interesting because they were showing different things that they're working on. I was like, oh, that's cool, but nothing really sort of lit me up. And they were like, well, what would interest you? And I was like, well, you know what? You do have a little movie that you made in the 50s. It was called Them. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I really think there's a fun take to be had with that. And they were just like, okay, let's do it. Let's make it. And I was just like, okay, let's do it. Let's make it. So anyway, so that's in the development we're in right now. We're about to find our writer. Right before we were about to just make the deal, and then the writer strike happened. So then that went on pause. So we waited for 140 whatever days it was, and so now we're just starting up again.
It's interesting because you're talking about DeLuca.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know that they are interested in doing IP that they own. Mm-hmm. So that fits into the criteria.
Yeah, I guess that was just lucky, right? I didn't go to that meeting prepared to pitch anything like that. It wasn't on my mind, but they asked a question, and that was what came to my mind. Well, I mean, if I could do anything, it would be that. And they're like, okay. So that was that. It was funny. Somebody else in the room was like, wait, is that one of ours? And I was like, yeah.
Are you, if you don't, are you planning on keeping the same title, or are you thinking about redoing that?
I think, I don't know. I don't have a definite answer for that yet. We're so early in, but I mean, it feels wrong to not keep it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
The intellectual property.
I want to open it up to the audience because I figured there was at least a few hands that would go up. So real quick, because there's so many people that are going to probably ask questions, I want to sort of do like not like a lightning round type thing where we try to get everyone who has a question to participate.
Let's do it.
So let's just start
Speed
right
dating. Here we go.
How was it working with the multi-talented David Silverman?
The multi-talented David Silverman. David Silverman, stand up. So there's David Silverman. Now,
We love you, Dave!
Now, David Silverman, his day job is working on The Simpsons, and he's been doing that for 30, how many? Six? 6, is it? 36 years. Basically from the very first episode on the Tracy Ullman Show. David has been involved, and that show has evolved and grown in large part due to David's contribution. So that's awesome. The other thing David does is play a flaming tuba. And on his off hours, he'll play the flaming tuba. And I learned that many years ago when we met. We became very close friends. And we go to Burning Man together. And David plays I play the drums, and David will play the the flaming tuba. And when this thing came along, I just thought, what a weird ritualistic thing we could use that for. We could do that during the ceremony when they're marching them to the maze, and it would be a really fun thing. I think one of the producers was over one night, and David was just playing it in the middle of the night in my backyard, and and Brad Winterbaum was like, "We have to use that somehow." What is that thing? Because everyone that sees it is like, "What?" So yeah, and actually, I think my greatest accomplishment in my entire life was the fact that now there is a T-shirt sold on Hot Topic with a flaming tuba that says, "And so it shall be." And I feel like, if I ever do anything else in my life, it's that I did that. So that happened.
Right there.
I was curious because we got to see 35 print last year.
Yeah.
Did you have a print struck of the color version?
No, not yet. Maybe one day. It would be
And then
nice.
I was also curious, watching this with an audience for the first time in a year, was there anything that you look back on or notice or anything like that?
Oh yeah, always. There's a million things I could have done better, but I didn't. So I was just like, and those things will always haunt you, but it's okay. As long as everyone has fun with it and enjoys it, then I can let some of that stuff go. So, yep.
Right here.
In a lot of those original Universal monster movies, they're kind of isolated, or even when they do team them up, it's kind of like a versus. Was it a conscious effort for you and Miss Quinn to kind of have the monsters unified in this project as opposed to the...
Yes, we wanted the monsters to be the actual real humans in the story, because to me they always are. The monsters are the ones who have problems, they have issues, they're people who need help, and they're always tortured, and they're always made fun of, and they're always hunted. And I really wanted to tell a story that ended up in the point of view of the monsters. So yeah, for me it was always about an alignment, but also keeping you in this weird space of, what is this guy doing there? Like, who is this guy and why is he doing it? If maybe he's one of these hunters, but he doesn't really seem like he is, and questioning what that is. And then of course when he starts talking to Ted, and it's like, oh, I get it. And then suddenly the whole thing flips, and now it's about them, their friendship and the fact that he's just there to help his friend, and that's what it's about.
Right here.
We've gotten to know you as a composer on every genre, basically. And now that we're starting to get to know you as a director, I want to know, do you think you're going to stay in the creature, feature, horror space, or do you think you're going to try and do every genre too?
Did everyone in the back here?
He's asking if I'm going to stay in the creature, feature, horror space, or if I'm going to try other genres too. I think, like the music I write, I like to try a lot of different things. I love this genre. I think it's awesome. It's really the best. And I'll want to try other things, and then obviously with them that would be something. But yes, I want to try different things as well. I like small stories too, human stories. I like stories about growing up and things like that. It's to me, it's gotten to the point where I think the bigger the movie is, the more afraid I am of going near it, because I kind of want to be able to tell personal stories, and sometimes it's hard to do in those giant things. So
I want to, right there in the back corner.
So, as someone who's worked a lot with Disney characters that have appeared in theme parks, I was wondering what your reaction was when the werewolf showed up at Avengers Campus.
Oh, that was insane. That was insane. I was actually with a bunch of Marvel people that and they were getting texts from people at the park, and look, and they were showing me like these videos of the werewolf running around. I was like, wait, what? What is happening? And they were like, yeah, we have him running around and chasing people and doing all. I was just like, that's incredible. I love that. That was, again, sort of like the Flaming Tuba t-shirt, like a very high mountain I was happy to get to the top of.
When you do something successful for Marvel/Disney, do you get a passport for life?
I have worked for Disney since 1992, really. I started with them in their publicity department. I moved over into the interactive department, and I produced video games for them. I've been with them a long time. So even when I technically left Disney, almost everything I have done has been for them, including Alias, Lost. It's all the Pixar stuff, the Disney. It's just insane how much of my library is really Disney. I guess it goes to show you how giant they are.
Passport for life? No.
I don't know for life. I'm sure if I did something bad, they'd take my pass away. But yeah, you're not going to.
Oh, so you get treated well at the parks?
They're very nice. Yes.
Got it.
They're very nice.
I was just curious if right back there. Oh, past you. We'll get to you. Yeah, you. You.
Yeah, that's it. With the ears. Yeah.
Yes.
How long have you been working for Disney?
How long? Well, since 1992, but doing lots of different things for Disney. There's all kinds of jobs.
But not the beginning, like how many years?
How many years? Well, how about you do the math? What's 2023 minus 1992?
He's been working there 72 years.
How long did it take to make the movie?
Well, we shot the movie. This is going to sound crazy, but I think it was like 18 days we shot this.
Oh.
In 18 days, yeah. And that was, I don't think anyone thought that it would happen, but we did it. And that was just because being super organized, knowing exactly what you want, going in without like being, well, I don't know. You got to know what you want. Good or bad, right or wrong, you should know what you want and just go with it and commit to it. So it was a lot of prep and a lot of organization ahead of time, but we went in, it was 18 days of shooting. And now, of course, we shot it in Atlanta, and I lived there for like 2 months beforehand for prep to watch all the sets get built and do all the stuff and work with the actors, but the shooting was 18 days. It was quick.
Right there. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Dial of Destiny?
What are my thoughts on Dial of Destiny?
Next question.
That was a curve I did not see coming.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm just a fan like anyone else when it comes to that. Am I happy they made an Indiana Jones film? Sure. I'm thrilled that they made an Indiana Jones film. Next question.
I was going to say, the issue is that, and just to, Raiders is here, and no matter what they do, it will never beat Raiders. Like
Yeah, you
Raiders
can't.
is
You
just
just
like
can't.
it's a masterpiece beyond masterpiece.
Yep. Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. We'll start with you. Sure.
Is there any other like dream adaptations, like video games or any like comics, like DC or Marvel that you want to do?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've done so many of the things that I grew up loving as a kid. Anyway, when you think about the between like the Batman and Planet of the Apes and Star Trek and Star Wars, and I mean, it's kind of covered all the bases. The only thing I haven't done is like a Snoopy thing or something. But I feel pretty good about what I've done, and I don't know, I'm looking forward to now do some more, both original things, and I think it's important to keep trying to put original ideas out into the world for us to look at and mess with and play with and keep everyone's brains fresh, as opposed to just keep feeding them the same thing. I mean, you just don't want to be fed the same thing every day. It works for a little while, but then you get sick of it eventually. So I yearn for the days of like the 1980s when every movie in the summer was like this crazy idea, that had nothing to do with anything. So I want more of that.
I'm gonna interrupt. I'm so sorry, but also you just did the score for J.A. Bayona's It's Society,
Society of the Snow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is something that for people that don't realize is J.A. Bayona is a very talented filmmaker.
Yeah.
How would you describe that score? Because I haven't heard it yet. I haven't seen it.
It's emotional. It's very, I would say, also scary and slightly terrifying, but also uplifting in a way. And it's all about sort of someone who's stuck in a place they cannot get out of, and it's about sort of like how deep do you have to reach inside of yourself to survive an event like that, you know? And it's a really, it's about a plane crash that happened in the Andes in the early 70s, and a lot of people died, but a bunch of people, some of them survived, and they were there for a long time, months, before anyone came and found them. So it was it's quite an extraordinary story. If you should see it, take a look at it.
Yeah, it comes out at the end of the year. I've heard nothing but great
Yeah.
things. I heard it's very, very powerful. And switching to right there, you.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I just wanted to say that you're like my favorite composer ever. So featuring tonight is like amazing for me.
Well, thanks.
So I'm super excited. I'm geeking out for sure. But one of my questions is like, what's your like advice that you give to like young filmmakers? I'm an aspiring director. Like
Mhm.
that's my dream is to direct movies one day.
Yep.
So like, what would be your advice?
Okay, my advice, make something. You have a phone, right? It's got a camera, make it. Go do something. You know, the advice is do it. Don't wait to do it. If you're a filmmaker, make films. And don't worry about budgets and everything at this place. You have everything you need to tell a story, you know? If I had that phone in my pocket when I was that age, I can't even imagine. I would have. I mean, I made a lot of movies when I was a kid, a lot. But if I had that thing, it would have been just like a ton. So what I'm saying is, take advantage of the technology you have at your disposal and make things. Just make things that are important to you. Make things that make you feel something, that make you, you know, excited or scared or whatever it is, what you want to get across. Just do it. Just make it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
To the back. Yes.
Hey Michael, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. That's the question.
Great.
I am a director editor, and while I'm shooting something, I always like think about the edit in my head while we're shooting. So I was wondering what your process was kind of like when directing something like this. Are you thinking about the composition like while you're shooting?
Oh yeah, I'm also thinking. I think very editorially, actually, even when I'm writing, or if I'm, you know, working with the writer, or if I'm on set and someone says like, "Oh, don't you want the reverse of this?" I'm like, "No, because we're just going to cut out before that anyway." You know, like knowing for sure the things that you can do when you want to transition from one thing to another. So I think also musically too, and if I have to know in my head what I'm getting what I want tone-wise. A lot of times I'll write the music prior to shooting the scene, and I can bring it and let the actors hear it and give them an idea of what the tone's going to be. You know, because it's always hard to get when you're just reading something, but if I can get across the idea of the emotional aspect of the scene, that's going to be key. I can do that with music very easily, you know? So yeah, I'm always thinking ahead of sort of where I am, and when I'm shooting, I'm imagining in my head the type of music that it's going to be, and that way I can also kind of define the pacing of a scene, define the pacing of certain dialogue, all of that. It's very, very, very helpful.
Right over there.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, a werewolf is a very classic character with a lot of iterations, but this time you have a very talented Mexican actor getting to say that his makeup is a homage to his heritage, and I was wondering if you could just speak to getting to use that cultural lore to inspire the makeup and the costume design and creature design.
Yeah, it was incredibly important to me to make that connection to his history and his family, because I figured somebody like Jack has probably lived a very long time and has outlived the family he's had around him, you know, and has had to constantly remake his family every single time. And eventually I imagine he would get tired of that and just live by himself at that point. And then these designs that he has on his face are the only connection left, and the only thing he has to remind him of who he was and where he came from and what was important. I had, you know, done a movie I wrote the music for a movie called Coco, And that's where I met Gaia on that film, actually. And I learned so much on that film about, the Day of the Dead, of course, and all of this. And it just really inspired me to bring a lot of that into this. And Gaia is honestly just one of the greatest actors on the planet. Like, I every time I see him in anything, I'm just blown away by what he can do with so little. Like, he's just, he can tell a story, but with one look. And it's very hard to do. It's very hard to do that, and when you find somebody who can just land that for you, it's just incredible. And he's just a super nice person, too. So.
Right there.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
I was just curious how did you approach composing the score as the director as well for a project of this size and scale?
The great thing is, Jeff Ford, who was the editor, he and I have done 5 movies together. So we're very used to how we work together. But what was great about this, it was the best process I ever experienced in scoring a film, which was Jeff worked in my offices where I write music. So he had an office there, which was right next door to mine. So I was writing music while he was editing. So he would edit a scene, he'd give it to me, I'd write the music, I'd go, oh, I need an extra shot here to do this thing I want to do. He'd give it back. We were able to go back so quickly, back and forth. And we were so in sync with the storytelling of it all. It happened so quickly. And that was amazing to me, because normally there's a back and forth because you're not together, and then he's with a director on the film, and I'm just a composer. But this way we were able to kind of just work in the same room basically together. And it was such a satisfying experience to be able to do that with him. And I think every cut he did would inform what I wanted to do, or I would do something that would then inform a cut that he would do. So it was a really collaborative process, the whole editorial process.
I hear the mic going out a little bit. I wonder if you.
I wonder if it's just because you got to keep it here.
No, yeah, because what happened? The transceiver is like down here. So
I think it's just me messing it up.
I'm just right
It's me.
there.
Do you have any favorite Easter eggs that are in Werewolf by Night, or any Easter eggs that
Yeah, there's a fun Easter egg, and when Elsa sits down in the mausoleum, on the plaque, on the because everyone's names are up in the graves there, the one that she sits next to, it says Jacob Howell McDougal. Now, Jacob Howell is a reference to Jacob Malcolm and Matt Howell, who do the Werewolf by Night podcast. And when I was first starting to work on this thing, I just started looking up like, all right, well, what is around about Werewolf by Night besides these old comics I have? And I came across this Werewolf by Night podcast. I was like, what? There's a podcast about Werewolf by Night? These guys have to be insane. So I listened to that podcast incessantly because it was great. They're incredible, and they teach you all about the artists and the people that worked on them, and it just goes much deeper than just kind of reviewing the contents of the individual issues. So I just was like listening to them, and I couldn't really reach out to them and say that I was listening to them because I was about to make this thing, and so I had to be really quiet about it. And then I was like, oh, but I want to support their thing, so I sort of did their however you pay for the monthly whatever for their podcast. And then they emailed me and they were like, are you Michael Giacchino that is and I was like, yes, I am, but I can't. And then they're like, and aren't you, we heard rumors that maybe you're working on something. I was like, I can't say anything right now, but when it's done, we'll talk. And so then I actually am really good friends with them now. They're great guys out of Portland, and I brought them down when we did the premiere last year, and they did the Q&A for us, and it was really fun. But so that's one of my favorite Easter eggs in the thing. Yeah.
That's actually a great Easter egg.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh, and I did it, let me tell you why I did it. I did it because on one of their episodes, they were complaining, Matt especially was complaining about, he hates it when he sees, like he's reading a comic book and then the name of the writer is on the street sign or something, or on a license plate or something like that. He goes, I hate that, it just takes me out of the thing. So I did that just to...
And on that particular time, he was very happy.
Yes.
So I have literally grown up listening to your code from the old Pixar stuff, and predominantly through the years you've used orchestra, and very much orchestra is what you're known for, which definitely wrote skill because it's universal film or Hamilton scenes when orchestra is really doing it. But then the credits come, and there's this blaring synthesizer and a drum machine, and it's completely, it almost feels out of nowhere. It's like unfitting with the rest of the film, and a lot of the discography. I'm curious why you chose specifically to use a more synthetic element there.
I thought we had just had an hour of classic, things. It was time to shake things up and, just do something slightly different. And also to say that, look, while the story feels like it's set in an older time, it's actually a modern story. This is a modern story being told about people who need our sympathies and people who need our help, and to look out for the people around you in your life that may not be asking for the help but may need it. And that's sort of what Monsters, those are the stories that I love, and they're great allegories for that. So, and it's something every one of us should just kind of keep in the back of our head as you go about your lives.
I also just want to say that's a great question, because I would have never thought to ask it.
Yeah.
That is like, you're a fan. And
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No one's asked me that. That's a good one.
Yeah. Right there.
Hello.
Even though Trains reported on the fact that Werewolf was being made, Disney kind of kept it close to their chest until like a month out.
Yep.
How did it feel kind of sitting on this golden egg, knowing like, wait a couple months, you're going to get this, nice little Halloween short?
It was fun, but I also it was hard because I had scored like 6 movies that year because of when the pandemic shut everything down. It's a long story. Anyway, and people would ask, "All right, what are you doing next? What are you doing next?" And I couldn't tell them because I didn't have anything lined up beyond that, and I was just Werewolf at that point. And I could not say anything each time. And I was like, when am I going to be able to say something about this? And they're like, no, just wait. They wanted to wait until D23 and do a whole thing there, which was a lot of fun also. That was so.
Right there.
Will you ever let somebody else score one of your films?
Like Brad Bird?
Will I ever? I think about that a lot. I think it would be an awful thing. I think for me to do that to somebody, it feels like it would be more of a torture situation, because I would know exactly what I want. But I also I do think about, it would be fun maybe to be surprised and see what else comes up if I do that. So maybe there will be a project that comes around that'll be the right thing to do. Yeah.
You said that JJ is actually good with music.
JJ's great. We've always talked about a situation where I direct and he composes. So we haven't figured out which that's going to be or not, or whether or not yet. But we'll see. I think I would love to do that. That would be fun,
So
because he's really good.
So JJ would be acceptable as a composer.
Very, very. I think so. For me, he would be. Yes.
We have figured that out.
Yep.
Right back there.
Speaking of Easter eggs, I think I noticed one of the monster heads on the wall. Can you talk about those?
The monster heads on the wall. Yeah, oh yeah, there's some Easter eggs in there too. One of them is this is a deep cut. No one would know it's Bigfoot. I mean, you might know it's Bigfoot, but I was terrified of Bigfoot as a kid, so that I wanted his head on that wall. And then there's 2 other ones that are. I did a short with Patton Oswalt and Ben Schwartz, and it was called Monster Challenge, and they both play contestants in a game show that have to dress up as monsters and destroy this city that's laid out in front of them. And each of their characters' monster heads are on the wall too. Yeah, sort of. They were a little more goofy in my short, and the guys at K&B who did the makeup and all of the monster stuff, they really made them look evil and mean. And so those are up there, and that's kind of fun. Is that what is there something else? Are you looking at for? Oh, there's also from the Werewolf by Night comics. There's this crazy little bat thing that is up there too. One of those we could put that up there.
I thought I saw the Wendigo.
Krog?
The Wendigo?
Well, is it or Krog? Is that?
Nah, the Wendigo, Wolverine, the Hulk.
Oh no, there's no Wolverine. There's a thing that has the white one with the white for that's Krog. That's also from the comics as well. Yeah.
Right over there.
I have no idea. I mean, look, when who knows? All bets are off, right? Because when Disney Plus was announced, they were like, and there will be no physical releases. You would only find out. What do you know? They're selling Obi-Wan and all this other stuff now on DVD. So anything could happen. I have no idea though of any plans for that.
I vote yes.
One of my favorite moments from the special is when Jack is trying to catch Elsa's scent, and he mentions that it only works once before.
Yeah.
Do you know what that story is? Or do you know,
Well, I mean, we have an idea of what that was, that here was someone that he loved very much at one point in his life, and who knows where it falls in his timeline. If he's 400 years old, I don't know. But I can imagine there was a time where he lost somebody, and or, you know, maybe this worked one time for him. I don't know, you know. And then, but it was the idea was that it was, whatever it was a painful memory. It wasn't an easy one, and it was meant to give a sense of despair to what was about to happen, an uneasiness or an unsureness of what is going to happen.
Before I forget, I should mention that when everyone leaves tonight, there's a really cool Werewolf by Night in color poster that Disney is going to be giving out. So by the way, everyone can get one. You do not have to rush out. We have enough for everyone. It's not like that. And also, if you did enjoy this, there's this thing, as I mentioned before, called social media. And if you want to go on those platforms and mention it, you know, we will not be upset. Just throwing these things out.
And if you hate it, then just delete all your social media apps.
Just throwing that out there. I think we have time for just a few more questions. Do you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, was there one moment or scene that you really wanted to perfect, or that you're just so proud of in this short?
I mean, I really like the hallway scene. There's two scenes. I like the transformation scene because I wanted to do a transformation where it's not on him, it was on Elsa, because this movie is really Elsa's movie. It's called Werewolf by Night, but big surprise, it's Elsa's movie. And during that transformation, I just wanted to stay on her, you know, not cut away. I was very happy they let me do long extended shots without having to cut away and do a lot of, like, you know, slicing and dicing. The other one was the hallway shot where he's fighting those guys. And, you know, we only got 2 takes of that because it's so hard to do those stunts. It is so hard. So, and that's an extended shot, like a minute or so. And that constant activity, they just couldn't do it more than twice. And he actually had to go lie down. The paramedics had to give him fluids for hydration and all of that because it's so hot in that suit. So his name is Lewis, our stunt werewolf, and he is incredible. But yeah, so I'm very proud of the guys, the stunt team, who really worked their butts off to get that thing. It was sort of like one of the Indiana Jones live stunt show, in a way. Not easy to do. So you understand why they do a lot of cutting during fights, because you just can't shoot them the way you want to, all of them.
Thank you.
Right here.
Actually, I had a question. Like, how did you get Laura Donnelly, like, to do this?
Oh my God! I just asked her. I love her so much. I think she is one of the greatest actresses around, and she does not get enough credit for how good she is. And one day she will. I have no doubt. One day she will. But she is one of the most delightful people to work with that you can imagine, and also just one of the most trained, professional. She comes in, she knows her lines, and if you change 3 pages of dialogue on her, she'll know it in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like she'll tell you, don't worry, I got it, don't worry, I'll remember it. And she does. It's not like, you know, when you're going in, a waiter goes, no, I remember what you want, and then they bring you something completely different. No, she gives you exactly what you need every single time. Yeah. Yeah. There it is. You got the bloodstone there. That's amazing. Jesus. I don't even have one of those.
He's a really talented prop maker on Facebook. I found part of a group, and he actually.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, so I use it as.
Let's see you use it.
In my work easier.
Right here.
Hello.
What was your favorite pun that you put on the Square album?
Oh, probably Main on Ends, M-A-N-E, Main on Ends. Anybody? Yeah. I don't even remember them all.
Hold on, right there.
I just wanted to say, first and foremost, I remember being a little kid with my dad, seeing Star Trek in theaters, and seeing the music stem when John Cho's on the drill and he gets the hero theme.
Yeah.
That was the first time I felt represented on screen as a kid, so thank you very much.
Oh my God. And by the way, John Cho, nicest person in the world.
Yeah.
And actually I worked with him on something. We were in down at Comic-Con one year, and we were sitting in a van we were doing a Q&A. He was opening a screening for us. We were doing a Star Trek thing. So I was just talking about what else do you do? What do you do when you're not acting and this and that? And he goes, you know, you're not gonna believe this, but I love to write poetry. And I was like, what? That's awesome. Really? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I'm doing this thing for NASA in a month or so. I was doing a 60th anniversary, a piece of music for them for the 60th anniversary. And I said, would you want to write something that could open the piece and that could be a part of what I'm doing? So he came with me to Washington and at the Kennedy Center and read the poem, and it was like incredible. Like he's just the best.
Yeah,
so I love him. Yes, and I know exactly the moment you're thinking about, and it's so cool because it was just, you know, Star Trek is so great because it just treats people as people, you know, and that's why it will always be my favorite of the spacefaring things. Is just because of its outlook on people. It's not about its outlook on politics. It's about its outlook on people. And I love that. I love it for that. So that's so cool. I'm glad that you like that.
I have to ask you because I also love Star Trek. So do you view, what's your ranking of original series?
Original series.
It's always number one?
Always, yes, original series.
So what do you think about with Next Generation, DS9, Voyage, like all the other shows? What's your number two then?
I don't know. I like the rest of them all kind of fall together for me, except for I have really been enjoying Strange New Worlds. I have to say
It's
that
fantastic.
I could not believe that musical episode cracked me up. I loved it. You know, and so I think they're just doing crazy things with it, which I think you watch that show and you're like, oh, they're having fun with this now. Like, and I like Lower Decks too.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, the original series that's what I grew up with. That's what I watched all the time. I still watch it. I love it. So I just sadly watched 1 million props go up for sale yesterday.
The VFX guy.
Yeah, that's just, and God knows where all that stuff goes now. It's like all into everyone else's homes, and it should really, not to like bring up Raiders again, but it should be in a museum, you know?
In case you don't know, someone who did VFX for a very long time and worked on all the Star Treks and so many other things, had basically collected everything. Massive collection.
Unbelievable amount of things. Like you're just like, and it's just going.
The original X-Wing from Star Wars.
Yeah, that got like $3 million, didn't it?
Crazy. Yeah, like none of us could afford what was for sale. It was amazing. Anyway, if you haven't watched Strange New World, Star Trek,
yeah,
thumbs up. Getting back to Michael, is there any last questions? There we go.
Speaking of collectibles, did you get to keep anything from set?
I have the Bigfoot head. They for Christmas, Marvel sent this giant box over to my house, and with a note that said, maybe this will help from your head getting any bigger than it is. And this giant Bigfoot head. It was very sweet, and so that I have a couple of the mausoleum plates, and you know, the sign above the mausoleum that said "Without fear." It's written in Latin. You know, a few things like that. I might have a couple other smaller things that I might have pocketed, but I
was going to say, you totally stole stuff. That's 100%. Before everyone gets up, I actually just want to do a quick photo of him standing here with the audience, if you guys don't mind. So just stay seated. I know you didn't think you were doing this, but you're doing this.
All right.
Hold on. I want to be able to put it on what we call the internet. So
Never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you want me?
Stand right here.
Here?
Yeah.